Hello, I'd like to welcome you to our Sterling Systems Tech Tip of the Month for the month of September. My name is Steve Coburn. Today I'll be showing you a little bit about how we use the annotative objects in AutoCAD. Today we'll be using AutoCAD 2014 for those that need the reference, but this will be able to be used all the way back to 2008. That is the year that Autodesk created the annotation scaling for your text, dimensions, hatch, and objects. So today I want to show you very simple how to get it started, and believe it or not, there is still quite a bit of confusion out there amongst our designers and architects. I want to show you how simple it can be and hopefully be able to get the confusion out and therefore allow you to better equip yourself with the right scales and producing your sheets and drawings very quickly and easily. So overall, I'm going to show you a general big picture. Right now I've kind of developed a little one-line diagram of our office complex, and it's halfway drawn. As you can see, there's only half a building here. What we're going to try to do today is allow you the opportunity to see how easy it is to set it up and also to utilize it in your design. So, very stick figure. I've laid in a couple of walls. I put in part of our office that has some furniture in it, some desks, a couple of offices and cubicles there, as you can see. And down here at the bottom, you'll see in our annotation area that we have a scale of 1:1 in our model space. This is our annotation area where the scales can be seen, where you can change your scales at a moment's notice. You know that we're in model space by the icons down here at the bottom. I have gone ahead and created a couple of layouts, and I want to show you very quickly what I've done. I have pretty much a full plan. I've put some dimensions in. The sheet layout right now is at a 24 by 36 plot, which is a majority of developers and architects use 24 by 36, so I just decided to use that. You didn't need to know that, but hey, let's go. So what I've done is I've come in and kind of done a little schematic design and dimensioned the walls and possibly the overall building height, building width that we have here. We have a dimension scale set up, ready to go, dimension style, I'm sorry. Some text here, real simple. I also have, this is at a 1/8 inch equals a foot. Sorry to muddle that up. But this plan is at 1/8 inch equals a foot. I just named it 96. I then have a furniture plan that is also at 24 by 36, and see the scale difference for a whole sheet. I'm going to zoom in here. But also this is at a 1/4 inch equals a foot. Got some text in there, simple letters in there, making sure that things are notated, right? Tagged. I also have a 1/2 inch equals a foot floor plan for possibly a floor tile. So very simple. I didn't want to get too complicated on this, so I don't want it to be an hour long, right? So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. This plan is at a 24 by 36 inch size, so as you can see, the text is quite small. So, okay, that's the big picture. Now I want to show you how we get to that point. So let's go back to our model space. This is our 1:1 sheet. This is where we'll design, we'll draw, we'll do everything that we want to do. And then, the way that I take things is if I want to start annotating, dimensioning, and things like that, I'll create a layout plan for that and put a separate tab for those. And therefore, I'm leaving this all into one drawing. So if this is a very simple drawing project, hey, feel free to put it in one drawing. But I do understand that there are drawings out there or projects out there that have multiple drawings. This can be completed the same way. So my first step is I want to create a text that is annotative. And when we say annotative, we're talking about a text that doesn't necessarily drive itself on the height of text here. In the past, I know that when I've worked for several firms that we have put a height in here that could represent a 96-inch scale, which is your own 1/8 inch equals a foot, and go down the line with 48, 24, and so forth. When Autodesk came in with the annotative type text, all we have to worry about is telling it that we need it to be annotative. The same setup, font name, style, all that did not change. It's all the same. And in some cases, it would be nice to be able to tell it, okay, I want this paper text height to stay the same, so I could put a height in there, as I did for my City Blueprint text style. So basically, you create a new one. If you have one that's already created, you can go hit new. It'll actually copy that style. And all we have to do is click this little button here that says Annotative. It makes it annotative across the board. So I came in here and created one that's called City Blueprint because I'm using the City Blueprint font. So, that's all good. Now, I want to create my dimension styles. So let's go into our dimension style editor. And I simply created one that's called Sterling. Okay, we go into this one and hit modify, and you'll see that under the fit tab, we have the same annotative checkbox. Fine and simple, everything stays the same. I just came in here and created some different line work. As you can see, I made a little different change. In my text, I did change my text style to the City Blueprint because I want that to be the same. Not necessarily related to the annotative part on that, because it does take itself and change it right there, hit this option. So I do want to let you know that it doesn't really matter if within the text that we tell it a height or difference, because it does control it at this point right here. Alright, so we have everything that we want to change. None of this dimensions here really make a difference. This is for your office standards. It will for scales, and don't get me wrong there, but the annotative will help the measurements here that you keep correlate to your paper space and your plot style. Okay, so let's hit OK and show you exactly how we did this. Alright, so we have our floor plan, and I simply put in blocks. I put in my geometry, I drew, I did whatever I wanted to do, and then I created my layout. And as you can see, paper space is always 1:1, but when I pulled this viewport in and created it, I zoomed in all the way and zoomed it out, made sure everything was in it. In the past, what would you have to have done mainly is come in here and zoom into a scale, right, and figure out 1/48 or a number of decimals or whatever, right? Well, you no longer have to worry about that, because all we have to do is select our viewport, and then automatically down here in the annotation, the viewport scale here, we can change that to be a different scale. Now I had this viewport locked for good reason, because I don't want it to change once I get it set. So as you can see, this one's set at 1/8. This one's set at 1/4, and so forth. So you get the big picture on those. So as we go in here, and I can zoom in here, and if you're noticing something, my furniture is gone, of course, because I don't want my furniture shown. So this is the only place that I have one layer turned off. If you'll notice here that my furniture layer has been frozen on in this viewport. Nothing else has been turned off. So I want to show you that for certain here. As I go into this one, you can see everything is on. My dimension layer is on. There's no dimensions in here. And then even in here, all layers are turned on. I'm utilizing the annotation scale because what we did, I opened up this viewport and I started dimensioning. So as we come in here and we click on this dimension style, we can see that it's a Sterling dimension style here. It's annotative per the little triangle there, the scale icon there. We can tell that. But in order to make this work the way we want it to work, and very simply, once I get one done, I can do very quickly. The annotative part comes into play right here. This is where we have to add or subtract the scales that we want this dimension to show up in. So right now, I'm going to click that little button there, and you can see that the only scale that I want these to show up in is in the 1/8 inch scale. Alright, so if we wanted to add a scale, let's say if I wanted that to show up in my 1/4 inch plan, we need to go in here and select the 1/4 inch. If you want the scale, if you want this element to show up in a certain scale, it has to be added. If it's not there, it's not going to show up. So let's hit OK. And let's escape. And it's not going to show anything different here, but if we go to our 1/4 inch plan here, very distinctly you can see that line showing up, and if I move this over, we can see it pop up. So there's my dimension. Okay. Now before that wasn't there because the scale wasn't added. So let's go ahead and change that back, and you can see it disappear here. And take this out, and it disappears. So very easily I can modify and manage what I want to be seen just by changing the scales of my viewports in those elements. And there is an option, and I can show you very easily in the model space a lot better than I can in the other viewports. If I change this icon down here, it's going to show me all my annotative objects for the current scale, or all the scales that I have it listed. So if I hit that button, everything's going to show up and pop up. And as you can see, everything's different size text. There's my dimensions for a 1/4 inch. There's my text for my 1/8 inch. And then of course the hatch. The hatch is the same way. If I want that hatch to show up in a different scale, I come in here and tell it to add a different scale. The option's not here in the quick, so let's go over here to our properties and pull it up in here. It is right there. So we only have a 1/2 inch shown. So if I could go and add the 1/8 inch or the 1/4 inch, and it would show up in both, and it would scale the hatch down. So let's go ahead and show that. So as you can see, at a larger scale, it changes the scale, and I'm none the wiser. So we'd have to come in and of course modify that. So I don't want that to happen, so let's undo that. Okay, so now let's take off our annotation scale. Let's make sure that changed correctly. Everything's back to the way it was. Okay, so we've got 3 objects: text, dimensions, and hatch. And this also works for multi-leaders. Same process. I'm not going to worry about boring you with that process as well. However, I do want to make mention that you can do annotative blocks. Be careful, however. I want to mention that if you have a dynamic block that you want to make annotative, make sure you make it annotative first, and then add your dynamic parameters to it. There is an issue with making a dynamic block annotative after the fact that you've created it. It takes all the dynamics out of it. So please be aware of that. And I don't think there's anything else to explain on this. I don't want to bore you anymore, but I do think this is an interesting fact that you need to understand. It's very simple. As long as your scales are added to those elements, it will work. If they're not, then they won't show up. Recently had one client call in and say that they didn't have something showing up in one of their scales, and it seemed to be working because it was showing up in other scales, but they didn't specifically add the scale to all the elements that they wanted to show up. So that is part of the issue that you need to add scales to all the elements that you want to show up in a certain viewport. Utilizing your annotative objects is very useful. You don't have to worry about turning layers off and layers on. You don't have to create multiple layers for different scales. So please leave your comments below with the in the blog. I appreciate your input. Any other suggestions that you may have, feel free to leave them. Love to hear from our clients and those that watch the blog. So I appreciate your attention, and I hope you have a good day.